In this brief lecture, we will cover academic disciplines and taxonomy. Now, I know you'll recall our lecture on why definitions matter. This is basically a continuation from that with some additions. So, according to Repko, there are many definitions of academic discipline, as there are disciplines in itself, which each definition emphasizing one or more of its several characteristics. A discipline or academic discipline is a branch of learning or body of knowledge typically studied in higher education, such as physics, psychology, or history. So again, a discipline or academic discipline is a branch of learning or body of knowledge typically studied in higher education, such as physics, psychology, or history. The academic disciplines can be understood in three ways. First, an identifiable field of study. Second, the body of knowledge associated with the field of study. And third, a community of scholars who engage in specific fields of study. Now, disciplinarity refers to the system of knowledge specialties called disciplines, and disciplinary studies relates to a specific field of academic study. So, again, Repko states that there are many definitions of academic discipline, as there are disciplines in itself. Each definition emphasizing one or more of its several characteristics. Okay, moving on. The purpose of disciplines, and there are so many, but in regards to your quiz, please remember that it is to provide powerful lenses through which to interpret the world. So the purpose of disciplines is to provide powerful lenses through which to interpret the world, and also to serve as a cognitive construct as well as an organizational unit. So moving on to a taxonomy of disciplines, applied fields, and professions, we first need to know what taxonomy means. First, it is the classification and naming of organisms in an ordered system that is intended to indicate natural relationships, especially evolutionary relationships. Second, the science, laws, or principles of classification. And third, an ordered arrangement of groups or categories. So, the Taxonomy of Educational Objectives is a theoretical framework for classifying learning objectives into a hierarchy of cognitive dimensions. So when you think of the term taxonomy, I want you just to think of classification of categories. Just think of categories or groups. Okay? All right. So the Taxonomy of Educational Objectives, once again, is a theoretical framework for classifying learning objectives into a hierarchy of cognitive dimensions. It does so according to the learning objectives of remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating, where each objective implies a level of thinking that requires the preceding levels to be achieved first. Now, your text gives some great examples. I want to just highlight a few. For example, if the category is natural science, then the discipline could be biology, chemistry, earth science, mathematics, and or physics. If the category is social sciences, the discipline could be anthropology, political science, psychology, and or sociology. If the category is fine and performing arts, then the discipline could be art, dance, music, and theater. So again, when we're talking about the taxonomy of educational objectives, it's basically a theoretical framework for classifying learning objectives into a hierarchy of cognitive dimensions. And when we talk about taxonomy in general, there are different definitions, but the first being the classification and naming of organisms in an ordered system that is intended to indicate natural relationships, especially evolutionary relationships. The science, laws, or principles of classification. And it's an ordered arrangement of groups or categories. So if we're talking about an ordered arrangement of groups and categories in regards to educational outcomes of taxonomy, the examples I gave you fits within that theoretical framework. And again, the first one being the category would be natural science. The discipline would be biology, chemistry, earth science, math, and physics. I strongly encourage you to revisit my lecture on why definitions matter. It's so important for us to understand that different people from different cultures or even subcultures or even university settings could have different meanings for different terminology. So one of the reasons that it is important to understand why definitions matter is because the way we define things helps determine how we think about them. And how we think about things can affect how we act. Definitions matter when individuals or groups use the same word but have different understandings of its meanings.